Great. Yes. And something like that. Okay, I just want to welcome you again to Out on Film. Thursday is a big day for us. We are currently in the midst of our second Queer Film Summit. And today we have our From Pitch to Premiere, The Real Deal on Distribution. And we also have our first ever live ski pitch panel, which is really exciting. Let's talk about that. Exactly. So first of all, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Leo Holland. I am part of the Board of Out on Film Industry Engagement Committee and one of the co-conspirators of this whole Queer Film Summit thing. He, him.
Hi, my name is Ava Davis, also one of the co-conspirators. I'm a board member and I do a lot of things.
A lot of things.
A lot of things. We do all the things here. Io, Leighton, they, them pronouns. I am a board member here at Out on Film and also a co-conspirator, if you will, of the Queer Film Summit and Industry Engagement Committee and all the Queer Film Alliance and all of the educational programming that we do here at Out on Film. Barrington, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Yes. Okay.
Hey y'all, I'm Trent Barrington. People just call me Barrington. My pronouns are he, him. I am one of the senior programmers here with Out on Film, so I'm super excited and want to thank our board for making this time happen. If another round of applause for them, please. And we're super duper excited for this panel and our guests here because I think they are going to be able to answer and bridge a lot of those questions to the unknown, right? So thank you so much for having us and cheers.
And so let's jump in here. Can we go ahead and start with introducing panelists, your name, pronouns, and what you do, what company you're with, whatever you want to share.
Hello, beautiful people of the world. How y'all doing?
All right.
Yeah, great. I am Elijah McKinnon. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Open Television, which is also known as OTV. We are a streaming platform and media incubator dedicated to intersectional storytelling. We have over 500 short films, series, and video art that we have distributed over the last 10 years, streaming exclusively to your devices here in this room. So I love film, I love media, and I love telling stories. I am a storyteller, and I can't wait to hear from all of you.
Good morning, actually good afternoon. My name is Stephen Brown. It's he, him, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Programming for the Fox television stations. So that's Channel 5 here, but 28 stations across the country. I do daytime programming, so I do Divorce Court, 25 Words or Less, game shows, talk shows. There's a show here called Portia on Fox 5 that I help to oversee. I also oversee a streaming channel called Fox Soul for the African American audience. And that's kind of it. That's enough, I think.
Hi, I'm Natalie Metzger, she, her. I am the Vice President of Production and Development at Vanishing Angle. I am based in LA, but I went to college in Atlanta, so I feel like I'm coming home a little bit being back here. Yeah, we produce independent films. We just wrapped our 30th feature film this year, and our film Queens of the Dead is going to be screening tomorrow night.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Winter. I use he and they. I am the co-executive director of the Film Collaborative. We are an independent film distributor based in Los Angeles. We're actually a nonprofit, so we work on mission-driven films. I promise you, nonprofit doesn't mean we're not trying to make you money. We absolutely are. But it means we don't take rights. We work mostly in the areas of human rights, social justice, various ethnographic and demographic niches. And for 30 years, I have now been working in the queer cinema space, and we keep, our company is 15 years old, we keep 50% of the slots always for queer film. That's just because I love queer film, and I've been doing it for a long time, so I make the most money with queer film. Honestly, I always say if I did 100% queer film, I'd die of boredom. If I did no queer film, I'd go broke. And I just want you to know that I'm really excited to be here. I've been working with out of Atlanta for a lot of years, and I've never been to Atlanta before. And just to give you an idea, I put some key stats for you, really, Jim. So in the 10 years that my current database is operating with, so it's a lot longer than that. In the 10 years, we've had 77 films with you. We have 5 this year. Heightened Scrutiny played earlier in the year. Then we have The Librarians, Assembly, Just Kids, and Night in West Texas. This is down from previous years. We had 9 in 2024, 9 in 20, 10 in 2018, and 10 in 2017, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it was relevant to say it because in all the years, I actually had the most difficulty finding queer film I really wanted to work with this year of all the years. And I think there's a lot of factors involved in that. So that's something we can talk about.
We will definitely be talking about that. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the work you do and continue to do. So we want to start things off. We are in a safe place. We're going to get real candid. I want you to be very honest. A lot of queer indie filmmakers always hear your story matters, your voice is needed, but that doesn't really or ever usually translate to financing and always distribution. From where you are and your position, what's the honest state of distribution opportunities for queer and indie films currently in 2025?
Back this way?
Yes. Where wants to start first? Go ahead.
All right, as somebody who, I would say I've seen a bell curve, okay? So it's pretty terrible right now. One might say disastrous. But I also remember in the beginning when it was much worse, right? When in the beginning when there was no way of getting queer film out there at all, there was just rampant homophobia everywhere. These are not the problems we face now. They're extremely different. What is what is still a blessing that we have to remember constantly is you can now make a film and find people to see it. You have direct access to people. Distribution just means getting a film from from making a film to where people can see it. The internet gives you no shortage of ways to reach your audience. So it's nothing like in the beginning where films would just sit on a shelf. The question is, how would you turn a profit? And it is probably harder now to turn a profit than I've ever seen. And a lot of that has to do with, we have to ask ourselves why we make film and what are we actually trying to achieve. Did anybody get in here, this room, thinking you were making queer film to get rich? Because if so, I suggest you leave. Or rethink your priorities, that's all. So I think changing the definition of what is success is critical right now because turning a profit has never been hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously one of the funkiest times, at least since I've been producing, which has been for about 15 years. It's really rough out there, but I do think that I think it just requires a change in the model. You know, like it requires kind of like rethinking the approach. You know, the approach, at least for us in our independent films, was always play at a big festival, get a lot of press and buzz, use that to garner a bunch of different distribution offers, sort through them, pick out the best one, and then your film goes out into the world. And in the last couple years, we're seeing things, not even just with our films, but with our friends' films, of films that are winning the grand jury at South by, films that are winning the big prize at Tribeca, as well as multiple other ones, and are getting no MG offers. And that's kind of shocking. Like the offers that those films are getting are the same as a film that's been sitting on the shelf for 3 years that hasn't had any festival play. And so I think it's just about right now figuring out other options for distribution, and also potentially taking distribution into your own hands. We always have had self-distribution as a backstop for all of our films, and that's because sometimes we get distribution offers that we don't like or that don't fulfill the things that we need. For us, we have 3 check marks that we look at whenever we get a distribution offer. We look at whether it makes the money back, so whether it puts us in the black. 2, whether they will be willing to do a big awards push, put it in a ton of theaters, that kind of thing, something that we wouldn't be able to do ourselves. Or 3, if they will commit to making the filmmaker's next film. Now, any of those check marks to us is a good deal. It only has to have 1, but if it doesn't check any of those check marks, then for us, that is a time when we look and say, well, is it worth self-distributing? So we self-distributed our film Too Late. The filmmaker specifically wanted to do a 35mm only theatrical release, and we had lots of different distribution offers, but none of the distributors would commit to that, and so we did that ourselves, and that laid the groundwork for us to be able to do Thunder Road ourselves. And if you're interested in learning more about what self-distribution can look like, Sundance did a case study for our self-distribution of Thunder Road, and we made a profit, we had it in theaters, we did all the things, and so that case study is online if you want to look at it.
I can't really speak to film distribution. I can speak to voice and visibility. So it's more important now than ever to stand up, tell your story, be visible. I remember that as few as 10, 15 years ago, we got a call from one of our stations, a station who carries one of our shows, Divorce Court, and said, if you have another gay couple on, I will cancel the show. We pushed back and said, well, that's the way it is because gay marriage was legal at the time. So, and we continue to do that. So we always want to tell those stories in whatever place we are, certainly in television, and want to continue to do that. The other thing I would say that go about self-distribution is that we are very much leaning into creator economy now. Our model is dying, so how do we reimagine what we do and distribute and get that product out? So yes, self-distribution, self-production, telling your own story in the way that you want to and owning that is a really viable way to move forward. So we encourage that.
Yeah, I have many thoughts on what has been shared, but before I answer the question, I'm curious, like folks in the room, like how many folks identify as independent artists? If you want to raise your hand. Okay, great. So that's really helpful for me. Is anyone like providing artist support, like doing any type of programs? Yeah, mentorships. Yeah, okay, fellowships. Yes, okay, great. So how do I want to approach this? I think what I'll offer or what I'll add is OTV, we sit on the like indie side, so we're very much looking at artists who are approaching storytelling from a lens of identity, yes, but also not so much trying to make money. They're trying to create a successful career with their film and their storytelling skills. And so when I think about like that question, I think that the media ecosystem has been just very challenging for queer people, and for a long time has not created the infrastructure that we need to be able to tell our stories at scale. And so at OTV, at least, when I'm thinking about distribution, I think that we have so many options, and I think that many of you all just mentioned some, is really looking at what success looks like for you. So do you want to sell your film? Do you want it to reach your communities? Do you want it to have conversations with your parents, right? Like, what is it that you really want it to do? And then figure out what the pathway is towards getting it in front of those people versus only thinking about it from like a top-down approach, or like if I don't get to Netflix, then I'm a failure, right? Well, the reality is that many of us are not getting to Netflix because of that system being broken. And so what are the other options? And so I want to leave you with some actual options. So there is an option called the Distribution Playbook by Seed and Spark in Kenema. It's really great. It's awesome for like self-distribution. There's OTV, which is another distribution platform. There's Here TV, there's Fearless TV, and there's so many other platforms that are available that you can get your films seen in the way that you want them to be represented.
All right, so I loved all of those answers. Thank you for that input. And while you were talking, there were so many thoughts going through my head. And since I can't remember any of them, I'm just gonna read off this paper. But from your perspective, when do you think is a right moment for a filmmaker to start thinking about distribution strategy? Like at what script stage, thinking about festival submission, all of these things that go into a pitch, or when you see filmmakers approaching you, what would your advice be on that? Because I know that OTV, they accept submissions for their shorts? Yes, so write that down, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think about distribution, like removing distribution from the equation and just thinking about audience first is what I would recommend. So like, who is this for? Where do they convene? Are they, on TikTok? Are they on Instagram? Are they in the cinemas? Are they in the club, right? Like, where are they? And then think about what you want them to feel, right? Do you want them to be locked in, right? Do you want them to feel like when they watch your film, they have nothing else going on? Or do you want it to be a part of their daily routine where they're thinking about this character and the way in that they're moving through the world? All of those pieces help you understand then the type of tactic you want to use for distribution. So I'm always thinking about audience, but I'm also a distributor, so that's probably why.
Thinking of it like a tool brush or something else in your kit where you select the appropriate brush. You may not want this brush for that, but your audience and everything else, how you reach them, are those brushes.
Yeah, and I think that that's what is so interesting about genre, because when you have we can remove genre from this conversation, but specifically when you think about genre, the things that you want someone to feel when you're watching a comedy is not the same as a drama. It's just you have different types of modes, and so that also influences the writing, right? It influences the marketing. It influences probably your crew, right? Do you need someone who's gonna be able to understand this film in a particular type of way because it's sensitive and it's dramatic and it's dark? Or do you need someone who's wildly audacious and a little raunchy because it's a raunchy film? These are all great things to think about, and I think about those when we're marketing films. When we meet with our artists, the first thing that we ask is who is this for? And it can't be just for you, right? It has to be for other people. And if you know who those people are, the more concrete and the more specific, like you just said, the tool, I love the brush, because some days you have a really large brush, right? Because you can't get it, you need to, right. But then some days you have a really thin brush because it's really thin and it's luscious and you can from side to side, Yeah, absolutely.
Two things that you just sparked in me is that one of the things that years ago I produced a series of dramas for My Network TV, and there were 60 episodes each. We did six of them, and now what we've done is we've cut them up into micro dramas. So it's not only think about your audience, absolutely, because it's not masturbation, it's performative. So, but also think of format.
Yeah.
Because you can do a full feature film, you could do a drama, a 1 hour drama, you can do these micro, which are wildly popular right now. The other thing is, because it's part of my company, Tubi, I know, is pushing into creator economy and Tubi creators, so that's a way to think about it as
We've started using the word community a lot instead of audience because we have found success with tapping into certain communities for specific films and found that certain communities will like rally around a film in a really great way. So, for example, we had a film a couple of years ago called Cold Wallet that played at South by that was a crypto heist thriller. And the filmmaker was able to tap into the crypto community, and they were all super excited and supportive of the film and really helped get the film out there because like there's so much content out there. You have to have champions that are gonna take that film and then kind of blast it more broadly. And so that core community, you need that kind of committed fan base. Same thing for our film Under the Lights that's currently doing the festival circuit. It's about a boy with epilepsy that really wants to go to prom. And the epilepsy community, the patients, the caregivers, the healthcare providers have all really come together to support the film, to help blast it out to their communities. So now everyone is starting to become aware of it. And even Queens of the Dead, we talked kind of early on that it kind of taps into multiple different communities, right? So there's the queer community, but then it's also tapping into the horror community and like horror legacy, and then like the drag community, which has overlap with the queer community, but also it can be kind of its own separate thing as well. And so audience can sometimes be like a dirty word in the indie world where people are like, oh yeah, 18 to 35, men, like that type of thing. And I think like trying to think of like the specific community that can be your rabid fan base that can help be your champions out into the broader world.
Thank you. I just want to really second some of the things said here that are most important to me. First of all, community and using film as community empowerment is what I've always done and what means the most to me. And personally, why I still think we need to see them on big screens and at festivals so we come together and see things in public. And that is why we have always worked in niche distribution. So I always say niche is King, Queen, Jack, Ace, the whole thing. And that all goes back to, well, first of all, finding the films that are hungry, finding the community that is hungry for their film, for that film. This is why queer representation, queer film festivals and queer distribution and queer cinema has been so important for 35 years or so, or longer, is because we are the hungriest of the communities, still. There are others that are even much less represented than ours. So finding the audiences that are hungry to see themselves on screen is what it's all about. I think you cannot emphasize more the distribution. So distribution, keeping this a simple idea that it is not a mystery of which companies are going to get involved. Distribution is the point from whence you finish the film to when it gets to someplace people can see it. That can take many forms. Therefore, who your audience is, knowing who your audience is, I think starts with day one. I think you do not need to get lost in the machinery of it. Let other people help you with that longer. But every decision should be made. And this goes a little bit back to that thing I said about, did you actually think you were gonna get rich? Because you're an independent film, 98% of the planet has no idea what that means and will never see one, right? So the worst thing is when people say my film is for everybody. I'm like, wow, you really don't understand who everybody is. So you need to micro-target, and then going on what you said, because the idea of audience in Hollywood is men 18 to 35, or women, whatever it is, people you cannot hope to reach with a broad brush in the way that you're talking about. You need millions of dollars in ad buys. But what you can do is figure out what blogs they're on, what that kind of thing. So it is about who is it and where do they convene. So that's exactly what Elijah said, and I think it starts from day one. So I want to make one practical suggestion. Your audience is your community, is the people you're trying to reach. Every day that you make that film, from this day you start, you're meeting people who are your audience. Your funders, your friends, your family, the people who are interested, the people who email you. Start an Excel on day one and write them all down. in a line. I say, when you start this 2 years in, you're 2 years too late. And the key is, do not drive yourself crazy into thinking you can be comprehensive about your audience. Not possible. If you try to be comprehensive, you will suffer perfectionist death, right? So every day you're like, oh, that professor, God, they were talking about that interesting thing. Put them on the list. That blog, oh, those 4 people you talked to at dinner, put them on the list. You know, maybe you get 20 a day. Maybe some days you get 0. Some days you're at a festival and you get 1 million cards. You will find 3-4 years later when you finish the card, oh, there's my first audience. It's not that different than why people do crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is not necessarily about the $1 that somebody gives you. It's about that person caring about the film and wanting to watch it. So when people come to me at distribution phase and they say, I've been keeping this list of thousands of people, I'm like, okay, can we work together? Because that saves me a lot of work. So I would say you get this feeling of accomplishment. This is my community. This is my audience. And it can happen while you're doing everything else, and it's happening the whole time.
I have a follow-up question. Just in your experience, when you're thinking about the budgets of the films that you see coming in and that you decide to program, because that's really the big number, what do you find is working for the films that you're seeing, that you're distributing, that you're putting on your networks? Because that influences what we as filmmakers need to do. Raising $250 is different than raising $750, which is different than raising $1.5 million, because you're asking different people and different investments. So I think for a market like Atlanta, what is a budget number? And I know that's a really hard question, but I think that's something really practical and tactile that we can take away and say, all right, here's kind of the ceiling where we need to meet. In my mind, I'm guessing maybe 200, 250 in order to get it to the production quality and get it to distribution. But I'm curious. Feature, because that's how we make careers, right?
Oh, okay, so 200, we're saying 200,000, just making sure that's correct. Okay, got it. I don't work in long format. We work predominantly in short form. But what I will say, and what I can say about the work that we do in short form is that our success comes from working in short form to get into Hollywood. And so it has become a more accessible format, right, for audience, exactly what they're talking about in terms of building a community. So we've had a lot of, runaway successes with short form series like Brown Girls or Code Switch, which all have, gone on to sell to HBO and Hulu because it did exactly that, right? It cultivated a really cult following of people who were deeply engaged, using exactly what you just mentioned, right? Like begging, borrowing, stealing, trying to get, maybe not stealing, but like begging and borrowing favors, building this community up so that people felt really excited when it hit the world. I think in terms of like what you're talking about budget-wise, we do invest in projects, and what I will say around like numbers in terms of grants and the investments that we make for films, yes, I'm always looking at the budget because I want to know how much it's cost. But I'm more, personally, I think 10 years into this, like I'm more interested in like perspective, time, and like timing, like why this film, why now? And yeah, and also just like, what do you get out of this, right? Beyond it just being like, I want to tell my story, like what is this doing for you and your community that you need to be at the center of it? That's what really motivates my investment making in terms of monetary support. And then obviously like, I want to make sure that the budget makes logical sense. But I will pass it long format.
Yeah. She probably has a better answer, but I'm going to give you.
For the programming you do.
Yeah, there's something really important, right? We're at a crisis point in our business, right? So what you mostly have to think about is how do people consume media now?
Yeah.
They don't go to theaters necessarily. They don't watch on traditional television. everything's on streaming. So all the revenues from streaming are a tenth or less of what you make in traditional exhibition. So what that does then, it informs the costs. So when you're talking about 250,000 or a million or whatever, 5 million, that's for an old form, old school world. We don't live in that world anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to completely reimagine how we use the tools that are coming out, but reimagine how we tell our stories and what tools we use and what the costs are for that. I have to cut, every year I cut budgets. I don't inflate my budget. I'm cutting. I moved all of our shows to Atlanta because of a 30% tax credit, right? That's the reality of the world that I live. I'm in a big freaking corporation. That's the reality I live in. So that's, in an accelerated form, that's your reality as well. So you've got to think about like micro budgets. How can I do this? How can I tell my story, which is what you're doing, in a cost-effective way because of the way that people are consuming media?
Yeah, I think that's really spot on. You know, I'm the person that's making the budgets for the majority of our films, but I would say that it's the more economic that you can make a film, the more likely you are to be able to get it sold and get it out into the world and to make a profit that hopefully then your investors or whoever is involved is excited to back you for the next project. And maybe if that one did well, maybe you can get a little bit more money, and it's always kind of like building up, right? Your first feature is probably going to be a micro budget feature, and then if that does well, then you hopefully can get, you know, maybe 1 or 2 million, and then if that does well, then maybe you can get, you know, a studio or a small, you know, financing company give you a little bit more, and you're building your way up, right? But you know, like if you don't have names in your film, do not make your film for more than $1 million. In fact, make it for less than 500K if you can, because you know the larger industry works off of the marketability of actor names, and so if it's not that, then you're really basing the success of the film off of the story, off of the filmmaking, off of like people really resonating with it, and that is much harder to do and to stand out in the crowd. And so the smaller you can make it, then there's just more upside and just the more possibility of success. I was talking to a filmmaker at the Charlotte Film Festival this past week. He made a film, he shot over 3 days inside of a car. It was essentially like a 2-person play shot inside of a car over 3 days. I think he said he spent $5,000 or $6,000 on it. And he sold it and made a profit, and it like got out into the world in a really big way. And that's amazing. Now, I don't suggest trying to make a feature for $5,000 for over 3 days. But you know, we made Thunder Road for $250K, and we won the grand jury at South by. You know, we made the beta test for $350K that we raised all through crowdfunding through WeFunder. There are ways to do that. But if you happen to have a high-profile actor friend that wants to be in your movie, then you can start thinking about bigger numbers. But I would try to keep it as economic as possible.
Thank you, and you're all giving great answers, so I'm just adding to things. I think that the question you asked itself indicates the depth of the problem. If there was a number we all started by saying it's a disaster, it doesn't work. If there was a number we could give you, that would mean the system worked. That would mean there's a math you can put to it. The point is that question does not work. Okay, so anymore, right? And we all agree, if you have movie stars, that's a different system. If you're not working, and I am not drawn to this field with the desire to work with movie stars. I worked for Tom Cruise, I worked for Nicole Kidman, no thank you. So the problem is closer to what she said. Just no money is going to make actual sense. So the way that you can You're not gonna turn a math problem that works, okay? So I sit there in pitch meetings for years and listen, my budget's 750,000, and this is mostly docs. My budget is 750,000. Oh, it's really cheap, it's 500,000. It's 1.5 million. I'm the one that gets the reports, and it's 12 cents a quarter we make, you know? It doesn't work. So one of the ironies of my wearing things, my far left, eat the rich, is we are essentially in a business that's supported by just rich people giving money they don't need to make back. Because turning a profit for your investors is based on stupid money in today's game. But there are a lot of people who do give money, just especially in the doc space, just because they want to change the world. So I want to say that it goes back to the reason I started with we have to re-examine what is success is because it will not work as a math game right now, and I don't see the hope in that. So I don't see this changing until we really start to change what you said, which is people don't go to movies. People do not watch long form. This is not going to get better as a math problem. This is not going to get better until the audience wants to see the film, right? So right now, I love what you said. You were like, don't recommend people make a feature for 3 days in a car. I was like, well, recommend that. When I get a film that, there are micro budget films that come along and they're $20,000, I'm like, yes, please, I will make you your money back. And then those sometimes are the most successful because they have high concept behind them. They're very marketable. So I think just the cheapest you can make it, and no money is so get the most soft money possible. Don't be in America, because in other countries they get funded. That's a big thing. Like for a long time, remember, in Europe, nobody's trying to make their money back. The government gives them the money and they don't have to make it back. So we have to have a completely different system and start. And the only last thing I would say to that is, if you are gonna do that math, which most everybody's not gonna listen to me, you're gonna do that anyway, make sure it pays you up front. No budget is right if you're not paying for your time in some degree. If you're just saying, I'm gonna raise this money, $100,000, and pay other people back and give my life over for 3 years, it's not a success. It's painful, and you will have a bad time. So this, I do think if it's not, figure out how you're a crew person in your own film, so you're paying somebody. Make sure, I don't want you to hurt yourself making this film, so your budget has to take care of you. Thanks.
Moving on, we want to make sure we have time for audience questions.
I think we should maybe ask one of the speed pitch prep questions, because we have about 10 minutes going into the speed pitch.
Perfect. All right. So, let's see.
Yeah.
All right. Just to prepare folks who have sent in pitches that we'll announce who will be pitching in just 10 minutes, can you tell us what you look for in a pitch? What are components? And if we're talking about a speed pitch, something that's 5 minutes or under, what excites you? What do you look for?
I could definitely start
Yeah.
that, because
Can I
I've
also
been
add-
what turns you off too, in the same conversation, what you're looking for, but also what are you turned off from, what are you not looking for.
So I think I just would reiterate what I've been saying to make sure you're carefully listening. I want films that know who their audience is working within a niche, has an idea for marketing to a niche, can identify who the audience is and where they are, and I want it to be important. If you give me a film that is important, the last thing I wanted to say that's also this is, the one thing we're all not saying is that everything is different if the film is great, okay? So the problem is this system that we're talking about is based on this idea that that you can make a mediocre film and it might work, or even a good film that might work. So Like if you made a chocolate chip cookie, it better be freaking great, but probably not as much as it needs to be with an independent film. So I want to know who the audience is. I want to know your background, some reason why I should believe that you're really talented, and that it's important.
And I would add, like for us, like we always like to hear like the personal connection to it. This doesn't mean that you need to say like this is based off of my real life and it's autobiographical. It doesn't have to be. But you know, if you're making I don't know, a movie about flowers, is there some kind of connection that makes you like the person that needs to tell that story? We get sent scripts on a daily basis, and so because of that, we don't read them all because it's impossible to, while also still actually doing our jobs as producing films. And so you have to figure out how to cut through the noise. Like how is this film specifically, you are the person to make it. It is a unique story that we've never seen before. Yeah.
I don't care who you are. So it's or your connection to your story. When we all I care about is legitimacy in your field, somewhat, and do you understand the format? When you write a film is a very, very specific format. A drama is a very specific format. Things have to happen in a certain way. If you haven't read the screenwriting books on how to write a screenplay, do that. If you're pitching a game show, you have to know the format. It's very specific. So understand that, educate yourself on that before you pitch, because I get 300 to 400 pitches a year, and most of them suck. So that's because they don't understand format.
I'm so sorry for y'all. Damn. Yeah, that's not my reality over here. So I'm super grateful. We get like so many amazing films that come into us. I think the benefit that we have is that all of our work is looked and leaned in through identity, and so really looking at race, class, gender, sexuality, and disability as like the bulk of our work. And so when I'm looking at pitches, specifically, we developed a pitch program with our board, and it's the two things that I always ask is like, one, can you explain it to a toddler? Right, like can you just like fundamentally break it down to its core elements and explain it to a child? And if you can't, then it usually is a little bit too complex. And so that's like one. And then on the more like practical side, we have this kind of rubric that we designed called the 3 Ps, and it's perspective, positionality, and premise. And so perspective is like, what is the point of view, right? What are you trying to say that is unique and no one has ever heard before? Let's go with that. And then positionality is like, why you, right? Like, why are you the person to tell the story, and like, how does it come through in the pitch? And again, it doesn't need to be that it's your experience or it happened, but like, if it isn't, then you better damn sure have a reason why it's you then, right? Because that's usually oftentimes with identity work, it's a little strange when you're like, I have no connection to this story, but I must tell this trans story. And it's like, okay, let's unpack it, right? Let's talk about it. Why did you want to tell that story? And usually sometimes people have great reasons. And then oftentimes we're like, yeah, exactly. And then the final one is premise. Like, do you understand your film and how it plays into the larger ecosystem of cinema, right? Like, do you understand your setup? Can you compare it to other films? Do you have comps that are actually comps, right? That are really looking at like, my film is this and this, or do you want it to be that and it actually isn't that? Because oftentimes when we go into pitches, it's like, I really want my film to do this, but it's actually doing this, and that's good. Like, that's okay. And so we tend to kind of score over those 3 Ps. So premise, positionality, and perspective.
Oh, sweet, thank you. And I think you like kind of posted me up for like the next question. question here, which is like, how do we turn this passion project, as we start to hear these pitches in a minute, how do we turn these passion projects into something that is marketable, into something that is, a little bit more prepared for your eyes or your consideration in each of your respective fields?
I need a minute to process the
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Does anyone else have a response?
Can you say it one more time, please?
Yes.
How do we-
No, I think as folks also get into the pitch and start to get their passion project to you, how is it that they can turn this project into something marketable and more ingestible for you to either pick up and support, rally behind, or to get it into that audience or community that we were chatting about? And I'm gonna.
Mine's a very practical answer. So we tend to absolutely look at how many labs you've done along the way, how much support you've picked up along the way. That's part of building the community as it's going along. And each time you work on it and you bring on another bunch of champions and another bunch of champions, the project's gonna get better, you're gonna have more and more support along the way. So really, when I see a film that says supported by blah, 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 and you've spent 2 years bringing it through all the major things, from Sundance to all the other ones, that project is almost always more ready to go than anything else. So I think really look for lab opportunities for a couple of years of doing that. It brings it a long way for us.
Yeah, I would second that. We call them stamps of approval, and as many stamps of approval that you can get onto your project, that helps it stand out from the crowd. And so even after pitching, let's say you're just bringing a project to me to hey, I want you to produce this project. If you've done won the screenwriting competitions, done the different labs, those are all stamps of approval. And there are other ways to get stamps of approval. Do you have an actor attached that their attachment means that it has more legitimacy? Is there a crew member attached that brings additional legitimacy? All of those things help you stand out from the crowd. And then just in general, when pitching, what I have found is that sometimes people come in and they're just really tense, this is their moment, and it's it feels almost uncomfortable to be in the room with them. And so I think also remember that the people that you're pitching to, we're just people. We like interacting with people that are fun and cool to hang out with. And so if you also just kind of approach it as trying to tell a cool story to a friend or something like that, I think you will find more success because it becomes a much more comfortable experience for us to hear it and for there to be more of an interaction instead of this kind of thing of okay, I'm going into my pitch now, and then
The pitching is really, really hard. I've done it on both sides. So I used to be an independent producer. I pitched. I receive a lot of pitches. I can't reinforce what you said enough. It's relax. If we're receiving a pitch, 9 times out of 10, we've given pitches before. We understand how difficult it is. We are rooting for you right from the beginning. So tell us who you are, make it light, be precise, get into it, know your beats, practice it with other people before you come and pitch it to somebody like us, and get it down so that it's very succinct, it's very clear. When you pitch it to your friends, if they don't understand it, we won't understand it.
Yeah, this goes back to what I said before earlier around the getting comfortable or the exercise of explaining it to a toddler, because when you break things down literally to a child, does anyone actually spend time with children at all? Okay, then you fucking know, right? It's just you have to literally bring it down because they're I don't know what that is, what's that word, or right, or they'll ask you a question, right? They'll be what's that, right? You just said that. So I think for me, when I'm looking at pitches, I'm less around looking at the marketability of something, because we're a distributor. We have our own audience. We know how to market things to them, and we know what to do in the story, plots that we want to really tug on. What I'm really interested in and why I'm in this business is investing in the truth. And so if you can show up and your most authentic version of yourself, whatever that is, then I'm gonna listen to you. But if I feel that like you're getting further and further away from who you are and what the story is, I can usually like, you can feel it, you know, it's like it doesn't come off as well. And so like I do think rehearsing and like, you know, community, being in community, sharing with your friends is great, but also like breathe. You know, like I'm a human, you're a human, people mess up, like just tell me the story. I think that's how I get drawn in, and I feel like the most successful pitches I've ever seen have been the ones where like I didn't even know I was being pitched to. I'm just like, oh wait, you just pitched me. I was just scammed a little bit, but I love it because it's so good, and I think that those are the stories that I'm drawn to.
I love it, and that's one of the things we really try and lead with at Queer Film Alliance is getting used to just talking to people, because people are scary, but the more you talk to them, it's a skill that you can build. So now I'm going to pass this to Io because I don't know what we're doing.
Come on over there. Thank you all so much. Let's give them a round of applause for this amazing education we're getting in real time. And we're about to get some more education here. We do have a list. Yeah, let's go. Very exciting.
Wait, do they know?
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't know. Well, I mean, people submitted, but they don't know yet.
Wow.
And we
This is
were
live, y'all.
trying to be very live. Oh, and for the speed pitch portion, I do feel they've signed IP waivers, but I do think we need to turn off the camera for their pitches. Not share. Yeah. Thank you.
And we also want to reiterate, this is for educational purposes only. So we are going to choose a group of people that have submitted a form online. They're going to get 3 minutes
3 minutes.
to pitch their project. You will be timed. You will be timed because being concise is really important when you have an idea.